Hey y'all, it's Nolan, and welcome back to the most disturbing films of all time! This week, we're looking at an independent short film with a deceptively simple plot. Aftermath.
Released in 1994, written and directed by Nacho Cerdà, the Spanish art film Aftermath is the second part of a trilogy of short films by Cerdà. Only lasting roughly 32 minutes and featuring no spoken dialogue, the film depicts two medical examiners performing autopsies on deceased men. As it continues, we begin to recognize a strange mood from one of the examiners, and after his coworker leaves and he seems to be alone, he then begins an autopsy on a deceased woman. As the medical examiner begins the autopsy, the cause of his strange behavior and heavy breathing becomes apparent. He is a necrophile. He then performs a number of sexual acts around and with the corpse, all the while taking pictures of his perverse actions, before finishing the autopsy and pocketing the woman's heart. The film ends showing the same examiner, now in pajamas in his apartment, blending what appears to be the woman's stolen heart and feeding it to his dog.
Fun fact, the name Nacho is actually a shortening or a nickname of the common Spanish first name Ignacio, and the food dish nachos gets its name from the chef that created them, Ignacio Anaya. That's somehow something I learned while researching this movie. Aftermath is excellent. There are some clumsy special effects at the very beginning of the movie, and I was kind of worried that would be indicative of the rest of the film, but no, the rest of the film has incredible special effects. It is an art film, and it leans kind of heavy into that 90s Spanish and broader European artistic style, so it's got a very meticulous, almost slow pacing, uses a lot of dissolves to indicate time passing, but it has beautiful cinematography. And the acting is spectacular, totally lacking any dialogue, with the main character that's wearing a medical mask for pretty much the entire film. It is incredible how much emotion and thought Pep Tosar, the lead actor, is able to put into just his eyes and his breathing patterns. And the sound design is powerful. It takes full advantage of stereo, and it really just adds to the disgusting visuals that are on screen. Musically, the film pretty much only uses the song Lacrimosa, which is from Mozart's Requiem, which is a beautifully haunting song about death, and that does sound on paper kind of cheesy and too on the nose, but I assure you it actually meshes well with the whole of the film and really works. It was the right choice. Of course, it's the content that gets this film put on every list. It's what got this film put on my list, but I just really want to emphasize first just how well made this movie is. It is actually kind of a masterfully made short film. I already mentioned the kind of clumsy special effects at the very beginning of the film, but those are easy to overlook. As well, the very last shot with the newspaper clipping I thought was kind of just a bit unnecessary and too heavy-handed. That probably could have been cut, but neither of these things are major issues and they do not affect the quality of the film overall. So I don't really have anything other negative to say, so instead of negatives, what I do have are some... I don't know if these are questions for Nacho Cerdà or for the crew or just questions for a pathologist or an undertaker, so if you know the answers, please leave them in the comments, but here are some questions I had watching Aftermath. 1. Why put towel in head? Towel is not brain. 2. Why put brain in abdomen cavity? Cannot take towel out of head and put brain back where it goes. Brain is not part of abdomen. 3. Why so many close-ups on penis? Is penis important for autopsy? These are the questions I have for Aftermath. Aftermath is a disturbing film in the truest sense. Now, I of course knew before I watched the movie kind of what was going to happen, it's why I put it on the list, but even if I hadn't known, a viewer would very quickly recognize what was going on, and then, kind of like Hitchcock's example of the bomb under the table, the rest of the movie, once you realize that, fills you with this just anxiety and dread, this intense state of suspense, as you're just simultaneously waiting for what you know is going to happen while hoping it doesn't happen. The oppressive atmosphere makes the film all the more disturbing, and once you finally get to that climax, you find you are no less disturbed. I also think the reason this movie is so effective has to do with how it calls into question our relationship to dead bodies and what we think about our fate after we die. When the medical examiner uses a knife to cut open one of the corpses, of course that's disgusting and it's upsetting to see, but ultimately we understand it as natural, and I think we can recognize if that were my body, it wouldn't really be that big of a deal, right? I'm not bothered by the fact that an autopsy might be done when I die. However, after we figure out that this medical examiner is a necrophile, after we figure out he's kind of getting his rocks off to this, it totally recontextualizes that. And then he cuts open a corpse, but does it in a way that is erotic? I don't know, but either way, it fills you with this feeling of violation as you realize the dead body is not just an inanimate object. And that whole questioning that the movie makes you do, I think, is something really powerful that this film is able to do. Now, even with all my praise, I would only recommend Aftermath to a very niche audience. If you're the kind of person that watches something like Serbian film and still feels a desire to explore more of what this niche, depraved genre has to offer, then I absolutely recommend Aftermath to you. However, if you're watching these reviews and this is the closest you have gotten or the closest you intend to get to this type of cinema, then definitely this one isn't for you. That's not a challenge, I'm just saying I don't think you will enjoy or appreciate it unless you already kind of have a drive for this extreme cinema style. This film is deeply disturbing. Aftermath accomplishes in half an hour with no dialogue what Serbian film takes a feature length and a full cast and crew to accomplish. It does in one location what Cannibal Holocaust with its exotic location and, novel marketing strategy failed to do. It achieves with pure fiction what Faces of Death requires real gore footage to achieve. And because of all of this, as controversial as it might be to some, as I implied in the cold open to this video, I am going to have to rank Aftermath above Serbian film on the Disturbing Films ranking list. So that was 1994's Aftermath. Now here's the Disturbing Films list. As always, if there's anything on this list that you'd like to see soon, or anything not on this list that you really think should be, then let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to see the next episode of The Most Disturbing Films of All Time as soon as it comes out, then click subscribe. Next episode, we'll be looking at something a little bit different, a beloved animated psychological thriller. Thanks for watching.